Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here and we're back with another West Coast Racers construction update thanks to our good friend John. And the first thing that we noticed in this first clip is the fact that double-spined yellow track has shown up on site and has actually already been used on the track itself. We'll see that a little later on in the video, but there's still definitely some track being moved over to the site itself from the lot right here. But we're looking at the final pieces of track, it seems. At least we hope so. We are definitely down to it, probably around the last 10-15 pieces of track, though. I don't have an official count on those, though, as of right now. But let's go into the park, since there has been a heck of a lot of progress in the past couple days, and this includes some new support work as well as a ton of new yellow track. So here's a quick view of that all right here. You can see the main new support is going to support the yellow side corkscrew, and then you can see also they have finally bridged the gap between the two helixes in the spaghetti bowl section for the yellow track, and have even added one piece of double thick spine track for the yellow side as well as on the white side. So we are coming up to the last pieces of track being installed on this coaster, and this is going to be fantastic. They just have to finish up that helix and then connect it up to those two inversions on the left side of the screen right there, and that is going to most likely be the topping off point, the last pieces to be put in for the coaster itself. And here you can actually see a yellow double thick spine track again on the back of a truck bed, and that we will see get hoisted up into place a little later on in this video. But everything is looking fantastic so far. The main support right there that's going to be holding up the yellow side inversion right there is in place, and it looks ready to take on at least one more piece of track right there. So that is fantastic news. And actually it looks like there's two separate connectors for that piece of support work, so maybe it will connect to both sides of track potentially, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But here you can see one piece of track being lifted up from the truck bed up onto the crane itself, and we will slowly see the progress of that being lifted above the helixes and a majority of the spaghetti bowl section and put into place. It does take a little while to get there, obviously, but this is a huge piece of steel. I mean, we're talking probably multiple thousand pounds of just pure steel in a track shape. It's pretty impressive, honestly, that they are able to move it in such a fashion that has become quite the easy way to construct something like this. And I mean, this is by no means easy, but compared to 50 years ago, it's probably a breeze in all honesty. But it's pretty amazing the fact that you could literally lift up a piece of multiple ton track above a good 40 or 50 feet in the air and just lift it and put it somewhere else. I find that absolutely fascinating. But speaking of it being lifted, here it is right now being lifted high above the spaghetti bowl section, and it will soon be lowered into place. It's just fantastic to watch it all go down in real time, and it's not something we were expecting to actually see, but you can see right here that is for sure double thick spine track right there being lifted up. And this just means that we're getting closer and closer to the finishing of track work. And also it tells us one more thing. This is definitely going to be probably the most forceful moment on the ride, right after those dueling inversions and going straight into the first helix in the spaghetti bowl section. It will definitely be the most forceful part of the ride. And also I'm pretty sure you might hit a top speed right after the second and fourth launches. But I'm unsure of that as of right now. It would just make sense to me, especially after having two consecutive launches within quick succession. So it is awesome to see the biggest pieces of track, arguably at least the thickest pieces of track going in. And here you can see it being lowered gently into place, and that will be fastened down in probably about the next minute or so of film. And it's very awesome to see this going on as of right now. And I mean, heck, this was actually taken on National Roller Coaster Day, so this was quite the amazing present for our national holiday for us enthusiasts. But we can see that this is quite remarkable, especially all of the progress in the past 3 days alone. We're talking a good 4 or 5 pieces of yellow track have been put in, as well as 1 piece of white track, I'm sure. And then also a good 2 or 3 more supports, which is fantastic as well. And this isn't even including some of the bigger stuff that is on the other side of the coaster, which we will get to in just a little bit. But we are definitely just going to focus more on this piece of track. And I wanted to talk about more of what's going on with the area itself. Not too much detail work going on while this piece was being lowered into place, but still some work going on nonetheless. There were some people walking around and doing some roofing work, as well as more progress is starting up with the new restrooms, which should be fantastic. Hopefully those go vertical soon, but no big news on the station besides more rebar just sitting and being ready to be installed for the ground. So here, just seeing more of that same footage of the piece of track being lowered into place. This is just really cool for us because we have not been able to actually see track be lowered into place for this coaster in honestly our year of covering it. So it's very cool just to finally be able to witness a piece of track going in fully. Once it gets within inches of being in place, that's when workers will come over to it and fasten it down correctly. And they got to fastening pretty quickly here once it was within a good 6 inches of where it needed to be. And then you just drag it to the right spot and then you tie it down and make sure it's ready and secure. And everything's looking great on this section of the coaster. But talking of sections of the coaster, let's move on to a different section now, finally. And you can see that the transformers are in place as of now, and they are looking fantastic, at least for the first and third launches. It is fantastic to see that. And you can also see some work going on for the land itself in the background behind the track. But those giant gray boxes in the middle of the screen right there, those are the transformers that were covered in blue tarp as of a couple days ago. Those are now in place. So the launch is just getting closer and closer to being ready to be used. And that is just fantastic news for us. And then we'll pan back over towards the Spaghetti Bowl section to get another view of that new piece of track going in. And you can actually see just barely a worker being able to work on that piece of track and try and secure it down to the support itself. But this is all fantastic news. They've really been picking up the pace as of the past couple days, and I'm kind of sad there won't be another West Coast Racers update for another week or so from us, because I will be in Ohio visiting Cedar Point, so I won't be able to edit any of these West Coast Racers updates or be able to visit the park, sadly. So just make sure to stay tuned for all of our videos from Cedar Point, and of course for our following West Coast Racers updates, which I'm hoping there will be a lot of progress to cover once we get back from Ohio. So here you can see them trying to fasten down that piece of track yet again, and this is just from a completely different angle, and you can see how big that piece of track is compared to them. It's quite impressive, honestly. I mean, those are 2 full-size human beings right next to that piece of track, and they look like miniatures. It's quite amazing, and it's quite startling to see how big the track really is, as well as just that entire support structure. It's not something you really recognize unless you're standing right next to some of it. And I think that goes for not just this coaster, but almost every coaster out there. I mean, everything is massive in the coaster industry, and we don't really see it as that sometimes. So it's an interesting thought I'd bring up, because why not? But it's awesome to see all this going down. But the next thing we gotta show you is just that crazy looking support for the 2 dueling inversions. This thing looks crazy. It almost looks like a weird turret or a guy playing a bugle or a didgeridoo. It's just really interesting to me, in all honesty. And you could also see they had more track lined up ready for installation on the back of that truck bed right there in the middle of the site. So hopefully that has been put in at least by now, or potentially in the next couple days. But everything's looking very, very promising for the next couple weeks, and hopefully we'll see a lot more progression in the next couple weeks, especially with the station, as well as hopefully the track work will end up being finished within the next 2 weeks or so. I'm really hoping that'll be the case, but we'll just have to wait and see for that. But make sure to stay tuned to Parks Bros for all things West Coast Racers, as well as tons of stuff from our upcoming Ohio trip, as well as tons of other news and updates from Southern California. But until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.